I shouldn't have answered the voice in the walls. My name is Emily Murphy, and this is my story. The silence in my new home was supposed to be a balm, a quiet canvas for my graphic design work. Instead, it became a stage. The first time, it was barely perceptible, a faint, rhythmic tap-tap scratch from within the kitchen wall, almost swallowed by the refrigerator's low hum. Perched on a stool, sketching, I paused. I dismissed it as the house settling, old pipes groaning, or perhaps the wind playing tricks with loose siding. Yet a prickle of unease, sharp and cold, traced its way up my spine. It was the kind of sound that made the air feel heavy, the shadows deepen, and the mundane transform into something subtly menacing. It was a sound that, in retrospect, I should have ignored. As a solitary graphic designer who had sought the quiet solitude of this old, detached house for inspiration, I found my peace increasingly fractured. The whispers returned, no longer confined to the kitchen. They drifted from the living room wall, then the bedroom, a faint, distorted chorus like a radio station struggling to tune in. I pressed my ear against the plaster, straining to discern a pattern, a word, anything coherent. I tapped, listened for echoes, checked pipes and vents, but found nothing. The house was old, yes, but its systems were recently updated. My logical explanations crumbled, replaced by a creeping paranoia that began to twist my perception of my sanctuary. My internal monologue became a constant interrogation. Was it the isolation getting to me? Was I just overtired, stressed? The questions spiraled, heightening the tension within my own mind. I had poured my life savings into this house, a desperate bid for a fresh start after a particularly draining period of my life. To admit to voices in the walls felt like admitting defeat, a surrender to the very anxieties I had sought to escape. This financial and emotional investment, coupled with my inherent reclusiveness, created a compelling reason for me to remain, even as the unsettling phenomena escalated. The stakes were clear. Not just my peace of mind, but my entire future was tied to this property. One rain-lashed Tuesday night, the whispers coalesced into something undeniable. A child's faint, desperate whimper, followed by a woman's hushed, frantic plea, "Help me, please." It was too clear, too visceral to be dismissed. Driven by a desperate need for answers and a perverse, almost magnetic curiosity, I finally spoke, my voice trembling, then firm. Against the cold plaster, "Who's there?" A sudden, sharp intake of breath seemed to ripple through the wall, followed by a fragmented, chilling reply. "She always watches." The words were delivered in a chorus of whispers, a cacophony of overlapping, distorted voices that faded as quickly as they came. Just enough to confirm interaction, but not enough to explain. The air in the room grew heavy, a sudden, inexplicable chill seeping from the wall, carrying with it a faint, sickly sweet scent like decaying lilies. The overhead light flickered erratically, casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe on the walls. I caught my reflection in the darkened window, my eyes wide, a stranger's terror etched onto my face. This interaction triggered an obsessive descent. I began spending hours pressed against the walls, recording the sounds on my phone, playing them back, slowing them down, trying to piece together the cryptic clues. The voices began to offer seemingly random, disturbing statements. The doll in the attic. "She knows," or "Don't touch the locket, she find you." Each fragment deepened the puzzle, hinting at a hidden truth or a past event, yet remaining maddeningly incomprehensible. My behavior grew erratic, my nights consumed by the hunt for meaning, my days a blur of exhaustion and paranoia. The section culminates in a chilling yet ambiguous message. One night, after hours of futile listening, a single clear voice, ancient and resonant, whispered directly into my ear from the wall beside my bed, "You open the door. Now you belong." The voice then dissolved into a low, guttural hum that vibrated through the floorboards, leaving the exact nature of the entity or its sinister intent shrouded in terrifying uncertainty. The loop of curiosity was tantalizingly incomplete, pushing me and the reader further into the abyss of the unknown. Driven to the precipice of sanity by the hum and the fragmented whispers, I fixated on the phrase, "the doll in the attic." I tore through old blueprints, cross-referencing them with the house's peculiar architectural quirks. Hidden behind a false panel on the attic's furthest corner, I found it. A small, crudely carved wooden doll, its eyes hollow, its limbs stiff. Tucked beneath it was a yellowed, brittle diary. The diary belonged to a young girl named Sarah, who had lived in the house a century ago. Sarah wrote of a lonely childhood of her only friend, a doll she named Whisper, and of the shadows that spoke from within the walls, promising her companionship if she just listened. The entries grew increasingly disjointed, culminating in Sarah's desperate plea for the walls to let her go, before abruptly ending on a date that matched my cryptic clue. The revelation was not a person, but a parasitic entity, a psychic echo that had fed on Sarah's loneliness. An attention trapping her essence within the house's very structure. The voice was Sarah's fragmented consciousness, amplified and distorted by the entity, a lure for new victims. My act of answering, of engaging with the whispers, had activated it, making me the entity's new focus. This was the terrifying payoff to my curiosity. As I read the final entry, the doll in my hand vibrated, and the walls around me pulsed with a sickening wet thrum. A cold, invisible force slammed into me, pinning me against the attic floor. I felt a searing cold spread through my veins, a foreign consciousness attempting to merge with my own. This was the direct, terrifying consequence of my interaction. I screamed, a sound that seemed to tear from a throat not entirely my own. The force receded, leaving me gasping, drenched in cold sweat, the doll clattering to the floor. I scrambled away, fleeing the attic, the house, anything to escape the overwhelming sense of presence that now clung to me like a shroud. I drove until the sun rose, until the memory of the house was a distant, receding speck in my rearview mirror. But the horror was not contained. The whispers were gone, yes, but the silence was worse. It was a silence that felt full. Now, when I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's hollow doll eyes. When I walked past any wall in any building, I felt a faint, almost imperceptible thrum, a silent vibration that suggested the walls were not inert structures but conduits, waiting. I found myself instinctively pressing my ear to the plaster of my temporary motel room, then the coffee shop, then the grocery store, listening for the faint, familiar hum. I never heard it, not exactly, but I felt it, a phantom echo of the entity that had touched me.